The alarm klaxon screamed red across the frozen valley of Cryosat 9. 52 cadets lay scattered across the ice like broken dolls, their thermal armor cracked open, body heat bleeding into the storm at 40 degrees below zero. Commander Velkarn stood over the readout, his three-fingered hand trembling as the biosigns dropped one by one. "Pull them out," he barked. "Pull them all out now." Rescue sleds screamed across the tundra. Medics in insulated suits dragged limp cadets from snowdrifts, their faces frost-white, lips blue, eyes glassy with hypothermic shock. The strongest warriors of the Velkarn Alliance, chosen from 6 systems, trained since birth in the harshest environments known to their species, had been broken by a training exercise designed to be moderately challenging. Vex's comm crackled. "Sir, we're missing one." "Which cadet?" "The human. Cadet Mara Ellison." Vex's blood ran cold, colder than the storm itself. 52 Velkarn cadets, bred for cold world survival, had failed catastrophically. And out there, somewhere in that white apocalypse, was the one cadet built for a planet that had never known ice ages like this. He almost ordered the search teams to give up hope. Then the comm crackled again. "Sir, we found her." "Status?" There was a pause, a strange, disbelieving pause. Sir, she's sitting by a fire, she's fine. She's asking if anyone brought marshmallows." Vex stared at the comm unit like it had grown a second head. 3 days earlier, none of this had seemed possible at all. The Velkarn Military Academy did not accept aliens. Not because of any written law, but because of an unwritten certainty. No outsider could survive what a Velkarn cadet survived. The Velkarn were an ice world species. 400 years of evolution, hardening their bodies against sub-zero brutality. Their homeworld, Cadets Prime, made Antarctica look like a beach resort. So when the Terran Alliance requested a single human cadet be allowed to train alongside them, as a gesture of goodwill following the newly signed Sol Velkarn Accord, Commander Velkarn had laughed, a rare and uncomfortable sound from a Velkarn throat. "Human," he'd said to the Academy board. "You want me to send a human through Blizzard trial?" "It's diplomacy," the liaison had replied. "Let her fail with dignity. It costs us nothing." Vec had expected a soft, apologetic creature who would wash out in the first hour, thank them politely, and go home with a good story. Instead, on the morning of induction, Mara Ellison walked into the frozen briefing hall, wearing a smile that unsettled every cadet in the room. She was small by Velkarn standards, barely reaching the chest of the shortest cadet. Her skin was pale gold, unarmored by fur or natural insulation. To the Velkarn, she looked fragile, breakable, a gust of wind away from death. "You understand the trial," Vec had said to her, not unkindly. 72 hours, no shelter provided, no resupply. Survive the valley or be extracted in failure. Cadets have died in this exercise. "I understand," Mara said. "You may withdraw now with no shame attached." She'd tilted her head, considering him with an expression he couldn't read. "Do the other cadets get to withdraw too?" "No. It is forbidden for Velkarn cadets to withdraw. It would dishonor their bloodlines." "Then I won't either." The other cadets had snickered. A human girl, thin as a sapling, refusing to withdraw from a trial that had claimed Velkarn lives. Cadet Drask Un, largest of the 52, had leaned toward his squad mate and murmured something in low Velkarn dialect that made 3 others laugh. Mara hadn't reacted. She'd simply zipped up a jacket that looked laughably thin against the coming storm and walked toward the transport ship without another word. But something in her eyes bothered Velkarn long after she'd boarded. She hadn't looked afraid. She'd looked amused. The valley of Cryosat 9 was a graveyard of jagged ice spires and howling wind corridors, engineered by the Academy to simulate and exceed the worst conditions on Cadets Prime. 53 cadets dropped from the transport at dawn, scattered kilometers apart, each given nothing but a survival knife, a thermal cloak rated for Velkarn biology, and their own bred-in resilience. Mara's cloak, adjusted hastily for human physiology by an engineer who clearly hadn't taken the assignment seriously, was little more than decoration against the wind. She watched the transport ship shrink into the gray sky, then turned to face the storm alone. For the first 6 hours, nothing happened worth reporting. Cadets built ice shelters using centuries-old Velkarn survival techniques. Dense-packed snow walls, layered fur bedding, communal body heat. It was a system that had worked for 400 years. It was not built for what came at hour 7. The storm that rolled into Cryosite 9 that night was not the storm the Academy had planned. A rogue atmospheric anomaly, later traced to a malfunctioning weather control satellite, collided with the valley's usual blizzard pattern, doubling wind speeds and dropping temperatures 30 degrees past any historical Velkarn survival record. Shelters collapsed. Snow walls, packed for a lesser storm, shattered under wind that howled like a living thing. Cadet after cadet, trained their entire lives for cold, found their bodies failing in ways their instructors had never prepared them for. Drask-Un, largest and proudest of the cadets, was among the first to fall, his massive frame no match for wind that stripped heat from exposed skin faster than his biology could compensate. He collapsed face first into a drift, radio silent, body temperature crashing. One by one, the emergency beacons began flashing red across Velkarn's command display. By hour 12, 52 lights blinked distress. Only one beacon remained calm, steady, green, Mara Ellison's. What none of the cadets knew, what none of the Velkarn had bothered to ask, was that Mara Ellison had not grown up on a comfortable, temperate stretch of Earth. She had grown up in a research outpost on the Antarctic plateau, daughter of 2 glaciologists who'd raised her inside blizzards that made even seasoned polar scientists nervous. She had learned to read a storm's mood the way other children learned to read faces. She had built snow caves before she'd learned long division. She understood, in her bones, something the Velkarn cadets had never needed to learn. Cold wasn't the enemy, panic was. While the storm tore the valley apart, Mara had already noticed something the others missed. A natural ice ridge running along the valley's northern wall, its curve creating a wind shadow nearly 40% calmer than open ground. She had relocated there hours before the anomaly hit. Not out of fear, but instinct, the same quiet caution that had kept her alive on real glaciers, where a wrong guess meant real death. She dug her shelter into the ridge itself, insulated with packed snow at angles that shed wind rather than fought it. She rationed body heat by staying in constant, deliberate motion, small movements, never enough to sweat, enough to keep blood flowing. She melted snow slowly over a tiny, carefully shielded fire built from insulation fibers stripped from her own pack lining, because she knew, as her mother had taught her on real ice fields, that dehydration killed faster than cold. By the time the anomaly peaked, Mara Ellison was not fighting to survive. She was waiting it out, calmly, almost bored. That was when the rescue sled found her, and the medic aboard, half expecting to find a frozen corpse, instead found a human girl sitting cross-legged by a tiny fire, roasting a strip of ration bar on a stick like it was a summer campfire. Cadet Ellison, the medic had stammered over the comm, voice cracking with disbelief. "Are you all right?" Mara had looked up, genuinely puzzled by the question. "Yeah, why wouldn't I be then?" Glancing at the ration bar sizzling gently over her flame, she'd asked the question that would echo across the entire Velkarn alliance within a week. "Hey, does anyone have marshmallows?" This ration bar's decent, but it's not the same. The medical bay was chaos that night. 52 hypothermic cadets on stabilization tables, medics working in shifts, Commander Velkarn pacing between beds with a knot in his throat he didn't have words for. Drask-Un would recover, barely, his core temperature having dipped low enough to leave lasting nerve damage in his left hand. Vec found Mara sitting outside the medbay, wrapped in a blanket someone had insisted she wear, despite her protests that she was actually pretty warm. Honestly, you could have died out there, Vex said, sitting heavily beside her. I know the risk, Mara said. I've known it since I was 6. 6? She looked at him, and for the first time, Vex saw something behind her calm, not arrogance, but a kind of quiet grief. My mom fell through a crevasse when I was 9. We got her out. She lived, but she lost both legs to frostbite before we could. I learned early that the cold doesn't care how tough you are. It only cares whether you respect it. Vec was silent for a long moment. Around them, medics wheeled another stabilized cadet past, oxygen mask fogging with shallow, ragged breath. My cadets have trained for cold survival since birth, Vec said quietly, and they nearly died tonight. You, who grew up on a warm world, sat by a fire and asked for dessert. I didn't grow up on a warm world. Mara corrected gently. I grew up learning that respect keeps you alive and panic kills you. Your cadets are strong, Commander. Stronger than me, probably, in every way that matters on a normal day. But strength doesn't help if you're fighting the storm instead of listening to it. Vec considered her words for a long time. Then, slowly, he did something no Velkarn commander had done in recorded Academy history. He bowed his head to a human cadet. You have my respect, Cadet Ellison, and you will have theirs too when they wake. 3 weeks later, the Academy quietly rewrote its survival curriculum, incorporating techniques a human girl had learned from a mother who'd lost her legs to teach her daughter what ice truly demanded: patience, humility, and the wisdom to work with the storm instead of against it. Drask-un, once among Mara's harshest doubters, requested to train under her personal guidance once his hand healed. She agreed, on one condition. Bring marshmallows next time, she told him, grinning. Trust me, you'll understand eventually. He never did understand the joke, but he understood, finally, what it meant to respect a storm and the quiet human girl who had never been afraid of it at all.